Today, we're diving into something truly fascinating, a little bit weird, and honestly, kind of profound. It's that feeling you get when a piece of art from your past seems to know everything about your future. I mean, have you ever done this? You revisit a favorite movie or a book from when you were a kid, and suddenly, it hits you. It's mapping out your adult life with a precision that just sends a shiver right down your spine. That uncanny feeling? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. Now, this isn't about some kind of magic or fortune telling. It's about art acting as a sort of retroactive oracle. It taps into these universal, messy, complicated blueprints of what it means to be human. So let's really unpack this strange experience, this feeling that a story somehow knows not just who you are right now, but who you were always going to become. The experience usually goes something like this. When you're a kid, you watch a movie, you read a book, and it's just entertainment. But then, years later, you're an adult, you watch it again, and bam! You suddenly see your own divorce, your career change, your deepest anxieties all laid out right there in the plot. It feels like a message sent just for you, through time. So what is this eerie phenomenon, really? Well, it actually has a name, and we're about to put a definition to this whole strange and wonderful feeling. We call it precognition by proxy. It feels like real proxy, right? Like seeing the future. But the art is just acting as a proxy. The person who created it isn't seeing your specific future. They're tapping into these universal human scripts that, chances are, you are going to follow anyway. It's an incredibly powerful and convincing illusion. And the whole process unfolds in 4 pretty simple steps. First, you encounter the art when you're young, probably way too young to get its deeper meaning. Then, you just go out and live your life. You collect experiences, you get some scars, and then, when you finally return to that piece of art, your own life has become the secret key that unlocks all its hidden layers. And suddenly, all you can see is yourself. And this right here, this is the secret sauce. Creators, a lot of the time without even knowing it, are tapping into what the psychologist Carl Jung called archetypes. You know, these universal patterns like the hero's journey or confronting your shadow self. Because these core themes, we're talking loss, love, reinvention, they are hardwired into our collective story. So of course, the art that channels them is going to feel prophetic when we look back. Okay, so if it's not actual magic, what in the world is happening inside our brains to create such a powerful experience? Let's peel back the curtain and look at the psychological wizardry at play here. The feeling is pure magic. It feels like we're caught in some kind of mystical time loop, like the story is a prophecy written just for us. But the reality? Well, the reality is rooted in some absolutely fascinating cognitive processes. There's this huge gap between our subjective experience and what science can tell us is actually going on. So how does our brain pull off this incredible trick? Well, it starts with something called narrative transportation. Basically, we get so absorbed in a story that our brain actually simulates it. It slips into the story's skin. This turns fiction into a kind of safe sandbox for our brain, which is this natural prediction machine to practice for all of life's chaos. And get this, thanks to neural overlap, the brain circuits that light up when you read about something are the exact same ones that fire when you actually live it. Then, years down the road, hindsight bias kicks in. It's our brain's way of connecting the dots backward, creating what feels like a perfect prophetic fit between that old story and our life today. But what if it's even stranger than just psychology? There's a researcher, Eric Wargo, who proposes a pretty wild idea, that creators might be tapping into actual time loops, where echoes of the future somehow bleed backward into their art. It's a totally mind-bending theory that messes with our whole linear view of time, suggesting that stories can literally snag us from the future. All right, let's move away from the theory for a second and bring this back down to earth. Let's look at how this whole phenomenon plays out in some of the stories and cultural touchstones that, we all know and love. Just think about how our take on stories changes as we get older. As a kid watching Lord of the Rings, maybe you idolize the perfect, graceful Legolas. But as an adult, you look at Boromir and you realize, oh, I'm more like the flawed, deeply human guy. Beauty and the Beast goes from being a simple romance to this complex lesson on healing trauma. And The Little Mermaid, well, it becomes less of a magical adventure and way more of a cautionary tale about giving up your voice just to be accepted. And here's a really powerful, real-world example. Imagine connecting with a book in your youth because you relate to the angst, only to realize years later that its central, hidden trauma perfectly mirrors your own suppressed experiences. The book didn't know your secret, of course, but it knew the shape of that kind of secret because it's a shared human story. And this isn't just a personal thing. It can be societal, too. Think about the 2008 film The Dark Knight. Its themes of mass surveillance, that felt like gripping fantasy back then. But you watch it now in a post-Edward Snowden world, and suddenly the film feels like it was proxying the very real dilemmas we were all about to live through. It's eerie. So, okay, this is a really fascinating cognitive quirk, for sure. But what's the deeper meaning here? Why is this experience of precognition by proxy? Why is it so important? Well, these echoes, they remind us of a really profound truth. We are not alone. Our struggles, our wins, our heartbreaks, they aren't some unique improvisation. Turns out, we're all just ensemble players in an ancient improv, taking our turn in a grand, epic story that's been told and retold for centuries. And when you really start to recognize this phenomenon, it gives you some incredibly powerful tools. It gives you resilience, right? Because you have this mental library of stories that are basically playbooks showing you how other people got through similar challenges. It gives you connection, proving that your personal story is part of a universal one. And it gives you perspective, the power to frame your own life within these timeless archetypal patterns. And so that leaves us with one final big question that I want you to think about. What's the book, the film, the song from your past that seems to have uncannily predicted your present? What piece of art made you sit back and just whisper to yourself, "How did you know?"